All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode. And we're bringing up a good friend of mine. He's a paisan, shall we say? And we go back quite a way. Like even before the fact that I own the Spring Fishing Show, prior to us owning it, it was owned by the Rogers Group, and I remember Italo back in those days. And I remember actually competing against Italo, and I think one of his daughters at one of the Canada US years and years and years ago. You know what? I'll tell you, he is a super nice guy. If you get a chance to, pull him aside, he'll give you all the time of the day, as he's done with many people I know. And he's a book of knowledge, is what he is. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring on a good friend of mine, Italo Labignan. Come on, there he is. Italo, how are you, buddy?
Hey, how are you doing?
we're good, but not as good as you being in Florida. That's all I can tell you.
I'm surprised you're inside. I'm outside. We had a real temperature drop in the last hour. It's about 75 degrees here. It was about 85, 90 earlier. Wow. Perfect weather to go fishing. I understand you got some mild weather. You got some rain in the GTA. And now I saw a lot of videos, on Facebook and social media about guys out on Simcoe trying to blast holes out to get the water to drain because they were in, foot and a half of water. I saw that there was open water on the Bay of Quinte. Chris Brandt video off the 49 bridge, and the ice was all breaking up, both east and west. So you guys are getting some mild weather, maybe some flooding and stuff. Good thing nobody had any power outage today.
No, we had power outages, and it was like not a good day for us. Like we've been going crazy. We're falling behind on all our interviews, and I'll tell you, it was not a good day here, but you know what? We're getting there, and I appreciate you coming on and doing this a little bit later, and it's talking to you every year. We usually get a chance to hook up at the Toronto Boat Show because we start our season there, and then we kind of move through all the shows, and it's kind of sad that the Toronto Boat Show kind of took the year off, as we did, same thing, right? But I think for the right causes. At the end of the day, I think that a lot of people will appreciate the Toronto Boat Show that much more next year, as well as the Spring Fishing Show. And you know what? They'll probably get a chance to see you at the Ultimate Ice Fishing Show. I haven't asked you yet, but kind of asking you, putting you on the spot right now. But have you heard about our Ultimate Ice Fishing Show?
Well, I have in the past. Is this the one in Australia?
No, dude, we're starting a brand new ice fishing show at the International Center, and that's going to be November 25, 26, and 27. And we're going to be doing all kinds of great things there. It's I think it's great. It doesn't have to be just about one show. I'm all the shows promote and generate more energy around the sport, regardless of what it is. And I think it's important that that we educate. That's what we've always done with our shows. Bringing guys like you is always giving us the opportunity to educate people to become not just better fishermen, but also become conscientious fishermen that respect the resource, right? I think that's important, right? So it's all good. But right now you're down, and I feel bad because I costed you a major fishing trip here tonight. So tell the folks.
Yeah, my good friend Tyler DeGraff, who operates Always and Forever Charters. We've done many TV shows together for Here's the Catch, right from season 1 right through to season 4. And he gave me a shout about 3 hours ago because we were delayed in doing our broadcast. And he said, it's the third day of the full moon. Let's get out. He's got a 42-foot boat, really nice charter boat. Let's go in about 100, 150 feet of water and get a whole bunch of really nice snappers. Because as I explained earlier, the snappers are active during the night, especially during a full moon, because the Goliath groupers are not. So a lot of times when you hook up a snapper in salt water, like a good size one, let's say from 2 to 10 pounds or even bigger, as soon as it starts struggling and you can't reel them up real quick, even though we use pretty heavy gear, a Goliath will inhale them. And then we're not using Goliath gear or 1/4-inch rope. So there's no way, you either break off or something happens. You got to break the line because you can't bring it up. So it's a good time to catch them. But I can wait till tomorrow. After we're done our interview, I'm going to step for about a half an hour, and then I'm going to get a good night's sleep. And I'm up at 6 tomorrow and bringing one of our boats right in front of the house. And then we're going to go out and fish for permit first thing in the morning in about 40, 50 feet of water using live shrimp. Then we're going to go about 16 miles offshore and get a whole bunch of bottom fish because I've got a friend here from Pennsylvania that wants to enjoy some of the fresh saltwater fish in the Gulf of Mexico.
So before we get into a little bit, I wouldn't mind asking you, so because like this year, it seems like a lot of people are getting anxious to go back down to Florida, and I think that's going to happen over the next few weeks. I know a lot of my friends that are down in Florida, including someone I'm talking to right now. And so when you do go down to Florida, like, are you better off going with the guide? Is it something you can rent a boat? Is it just shore fishing? Like, what would you recommend for someone who's kind of coming down to Florida, maybe for just a vacay, but maybe turn it into a bit of fishing thing?
The first thing I'd say is that you don't really need to hire a guide unless you want the experience or you have the bucks that you want to go out, offshore. You can do one of these party boat trips, but usually a half-day trip that maybe charges $70, $80 is really 2 or 3 hours fishing, because the big party boats take a while to get out to the spot, to get to deeper water, especially on the southwest side of Florida. And then you're only fishing a couple of hours. And sometimes because they're called drift boats, you're drifting with the lines. They don't like to anchor up. You can get messes with the lines and stuff. You catch some fish, but that's not the best. So if you don't want to do that, there's great shore fishing. One of the fish that I love to get down here, and I know a lot of my Canadian friends like to fish for them, is the saltwater sheepshead. Not to be confused with the fish we call the sheepshead back home. That's really a freshwater drum. The saltwater sheepshead is white with black stripes. And in the wintertime, from November right through till almost March, they move into the inward waters, into the intercoastal. And they like to feed around piles, bridges, piers. And one of my favorite places is any of the old bridges, like railway bridges that aren't being used anymore. You buy fiddler crabs, use them for bait, or you can buy shrimp. Live shrimp is the best. And you fish close to the piles. A lot of times you can see them. And you can catch them, and they got to be 12 inches, and most of the ones we get are about 17 to 20 inches. So you get really nice fillets off them. The other type of fishing that I think is more fun than just going out off the beach, where really you don't know if you're going to get anything, especially if it's, the water's messed up and it's rough, or going out on a long fishing pier where most people don't have the right equipment, and a lot of times there aren't a lot of fish running if the weather's bad, is to just find some flats. And, I'm fortunate because I've got the Navionics mapping on my phone. So you can look very quickly wherever you're staying in Florida and see where, some of the keys that you can get to by driving close to a bridge or a causeway. If you can walk down and wade out in the water and just throw a live shrimp out, or even fish top water, you're probably going to get snook. Even though you can't keep them, you can still hook them and catch them and release them. You can also get spotted sea trout. You can get trevally jacks. You can get some redfish that have to be released as well, because right now the season's closed on them. But the spotted sea trout, you can keep 3 as long as they're over 15 inches and one over 19. They're great eating fish, and you can just wade in up to your knees, because these fish will come right in shallow water. So, but not on the beach side. You got to be on the intercoastal side, and wherever there's some eelgrass. And you can see the eelgrass because it's darker in color and the sand around it is lighter in color. So lots of opportunities here, even just to bring down your 7-foot spinning rod, with 20 or 30 pound braid, handful of jigs, some terminal tackle. I tell people that if they're going to be saltwater fishing, especially with terminal tackle like hooks and sinkers and stuff, wait till you get down here, go to Walmart, buy, some of the saltwater hooks and stuff and sinkers, just so and lures even, so that the stuff that you have back home won't rust by the time you get back.
True. All right, so let's talk about Italo Labignan. You know what? You're actually an Oshawa boy. Is that correct? Is that true? Is that where you were raised?
Well, I used to ride my bicycle on Simcoe Street from Oshawa all the way up the Oak Ridges Moraine to Port Perry. Can you believe that? I don't know if you've driven that. Big ridges.
Not by bicycle.
Up there. And in the old days, when I didn't have a driver's license and I didn't want to pack a rod, I just used a spool of line, put it in my pocket with a couple of split shot and a hook. And I'd be on Highway 7A, you got the 3 culverts, and I just fish with the line, kind of like they do, in Europe, hand line, and catching big panfish, the odd largemouth bass and stuff. And also living in Oshawa, I used to ride my bike on Taunton Road East. So I was like a little river rat, and I remember breaking rods because there were no trails, so I'd be fishing the headwaters of Oshawa Creek all the way, like almost, 35, 115, way over by Orono and stuff. And then home. Yeah, so I know the area quite well. I don't fish, around Oshawa anymore, but I used to fish all of the tributaries. That's where I learned how to steelhead fish, the eastern tribs. And when the steelhead were out, I'd fish for bass when the season was open, like at the mouth of Bowmanville Creek and Wilmont Creek, Oshawa Creek, and also pike great pike fishing early in the spring when the pike come in. And the season used to be open all year in Lake Ontario back then. So you could just cast spinners and get pike right in Oshawa. I just ride my bike down and go fishing. Now, that was a few years ago. I'm not going to say how many years
No,
ago,
it's
but
not too many years ago. Just a few years ago. So what came first? Well, I guess the fishing obviously came first, but you were also you were mounting fish back then, right? Were you not doing?
later. I had to have a driver's license to do taxidermy. Yeah, so in the late '70s and early '80s, I had a business professional taxidermy. It was right in Oshawa on Simcoe Street South by a place called Rama Surplus, which was like a army surplus store that a lot of
Yeah,
people use. Almost down a little bit from Gagnon Sports. That's before Gagnon Sports,
yeah,
moved down further. It was just a little shop, and Roger Party was just getting
yeah,
started. So I was actually very good friends with Roger, and he would even collect fish for me. He'd get a commission, and I had fish mounts at Gagnon Sports, and that was before their present location. They used to be on Simcoe Street South, below Bloor. So yeah, no, I've got great experiences from Oshawa, and
yeah.
when I did taxidermy, that was the last thing I did before we started doing the television series, which would have been 1985, 86. And then, of course, I sold my taxidermy business and then had to move to the west side of Toronto. And then the rest is history, as they say. Still doing the Canadian Sport Fishing Show, and now the Here's the Catch saltwater TV series.
Yeah, you just touched home with Roger. I love that guy, man. Like he was such a good guy. Roger Party was just a fantastic person. And
Well, in our younger years, we used to go hunting together. And
yeah,
then before I moved down to Oshawa, he would come up to Lindsay and we'd go duck hunting together and stuff. And I remember when I started doing the taxidermy, a lot of people, we must have looked alike because a lot of people confused us. They thought Roger was me and they thought I was Roger, which was kind of, and then of course, the sad incident happened and he passed away, which was very
yeah.
unfortunate.
It was actually very, very fortunate. And, but it's funny, like how many times we've crossed paths ourselves. And you used to fish tournaments back in the day, right? I remember you used to be you were pretty good for a tournament fisherman too. So like I'm just saying, like you were a good guy.
Yeah,
You
well,
like the walleye tournament, especially if I remember correctly.
in the '80s, I had a goal of being one of the first Canadians to be in the top 40 of a Bassmaster tournament. So, and I remember going down in the States and fishing the invitationals. I was on my way because I was like in 21st position. And back then, they took the top 40 to fish the Bassmaster Classic. So I remember trailering all the way down to Lake Georgia, so I really understand what the guys go through to try to, make it into the big times, whether it's Izumi or some of the other guys, especially from Canada and even in the US, because it's really hard. Back then I was sleeping in my truck and you'd have 3 days of pre-fishing and then 3 days of the invitational tournament. And you're fishing against some of the best fishermen in North America. When I fished, it was the time of Jimmy Houston, Roland Martin, all the big headliners that are kind of my age now or older. And I was one of the first Canadians to place in the money of an invitational. And then, I also fished your tournaments. I remember the first bass tournament that I won was a Labatt's Loyalist smallmouth bass tournament, Collins Bay, and that goes way back. I don't know if that was I'm going to say mid '80s. I don't know if you remember the Labatt's fishing series.
Yeah. I fished them.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it. To me, it was more of an excuse to go fishing.
Yeah.
It wasn't much of trying to win. And I tell people today, if you want to pick up tips and you want an excuse to go fishing, don't worry about the money and don't worry about competing against other fishermen. It's you and the fish. That's what I tell them. Because if you're worried about whoever else is in the tournament and how they're going to do, it's going to mess up your strategies and everything. And a lot of times, doesn't matter how much you practice, the weather will change in a tournament and you're fishing by the seat of your pants. So you got to figure out real quick what you're going to do when the wind changes direction, when the storm comes in, or bluebird skies, and there's, it's 90 degrees out in the summertime. So it's a great way to learn stuff. And then a lot of the guys share information. They don't tell you exactly where they fish, but what they've been catching the fish on and how they've been fishing. And then, people can try those and then they'll probably have more success.
Isn't it funny? We go back there in those days, like we didn't have the internet. We didn't have like the tools that they have, and yet that information still got out. it still got out, and I don't know if it's because we were more social back then, just kind of walking up to a guy and start talking to the guy out of the blue. I don't know what it was, but
No,
it
it was
just seemed like the information was more out there.
yeah, it was more physical interaction. I mean, now it's funny. I do posts every day,
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Instagram accounts, a couple of Facebook accounts, on YouTube and stuff, and answer questions and everything.
In your world.
Find funny is, some people expect to have like instant fishing results without having to do any work or any knowledge. So, it's almost funny when someone says, I want to catch some walleye. Where can I go tomorrow? you know,
Oh yeah.
that because it doesn't work that way, and the guys that know how to catch fish, I don't care where it is or what species of fish, they've put in the time, they've done their studying, they've done their trial and error, they've gone with many fishless days, and then finally they figure out, what the best time is to fish and where to fish and what to use and so on. So to me, that's half the fun. When Andy, I may be going back to the Bahamas and doing some fishing with some people. And it'll be waters that I've never fished before. And I'm already starting to do my research, for that time of year that we're going down and the fish that we're going to be going after. Now, mind you, that's saltwater fishing, and a lot of it is offshore big game fishing. But to me, half the challenge is to actually find the information, get ready with the right gear, and then almost the climax is actually putting everything to use. So it's one thing finding research, and asking people on the internet or whatever, but there's nothing better than getting firsthand experience. And one of the ways you get it is by making mistakes and going at the wrong time, because eventually you're going to figure it out.
That is very, very true. And it's not just like that. Sometimes the feel, like, sometimes you get these new anglers with,
Yep.
and you're the look at you, especially when you're walleye fishing, it's the biggest part because people don't look for that little twitch or whatever makes that difference, right? And river fishing, because we both grew up river. You get guys that are sitting there in the same pool, right, fishing the exact same lines, right, run line, and boom, fish on. They're looking at like, oh, you're snagging the fish. And the thing is like you're not. The thing is like you're feeling something that they're not, and it's like all of a sudden it clicks in, and you're catching fish. And I always relate that back just to normal fishing because you remember there was that video, Big Bass or Big, where they were trolling a lure behind a boat, and there was bass hitting it, and they
Yep.
couldn't even feel the fish hitting the lure so many times, right? And I think that applies so many times. Like, it makes you think, how many times do you think you may have had a world record fish or a Canadian record fish on your line and never felt it? Things like that. Like I think like that. I'm a little bit different than other people, right? But it's the way it is, right?
Last, I'm going to say 5 years, I've worked with a couple of underwater camera companies. One is called Spydro. It's technology from Israel. The last one was the Go Fish Cam. That's relatively inexpensive, and a lot of people have them. And we the Go Fish Cam and also the Spydro you can put right in line on your fishing line when you're trolling or casting or even jigging. We were jigging in the upper Niagara River for different species of fish, for walleye, for steelhead. And we would go for an hour without getting anything, not even feeling anything, using artificials. And then we'd look at the footage and we'd be going, wow, oh, because walleyes would be going for it and they'd pick the jig up and let go of it and they would be drifting with the current because, the Niagara River is like
Oh, yeah.
current in a lot of areas.
Yeah,
We did. So eventually, we hooked up some fish and some of the footage was used as cutaways in our shows and stuff. But to see how many more fish there were there than we thought there were. And when you're running your sonar, your electronics, you really don't know what the fish are. When you mark fish on the bottom, I mean, they could be suckers, they could be carp, they could be coarse fish, like freshwater drum or panfish and stuff, and some game fish. But it's just amazing when you see what goes out and how many fish you miss and that come up to your lure and don't hit it, So, yeah, it's a real eye opener. I think a lot of fishermen don't realize, they think that if they go out and they don't get any fish, that they're not there. A lot of times they're just not active and you can't get them to hit.
Yeah. Well, going back to talking about the Canadian guys that fish, we had a tournament this summertime, and Corey Johnson and that Lynn Johnson actually won. It was the bronze back up out of Beaverton, and I think you fished out of Beaverton quite a few times in your day. So, the he won the tournament, and we had him on the microphone, and he gets up there and he goes, we pulled up to the spot everybody's at, and there was no boats there. So he's like, and I said, okay, so you had the whole spot to yourself? No, we left and went to where the fish were biting. He goes, we figured the fish weren't biting. And, so sometimes, again, that's the professional way of saying it's not, he didn't say the fish weren't there, but what he said was they just weren't biting at that area, right? So I guess sometimes you got to know when to move to that next location too, which makes a difference.
Timing
is
important.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. So all the years, have you ever had a count of how many shows you've done? Like, do you have a running ticker to say this is show number 10,000, or because like you got a lot of shows, dude. So like, but what would you say is probably your most memorable show? Like, what would be one that maybe stands out because of somebody you had on the boat with you, or maybe
you might. My most memorable time is when we almost all lost our life.
Oh,
and we didn't.
Wow!
Never forget that. We're shooting a 1-hour special, or planning to, in Nicaragua on the Pacific side, and it was for a series called Extreme Fishing that we were doing for TSN, and we went out 70 miles into the heart of the El Nino warm water current off of Nicaragua in about a 65-foot vessel that was loaded with like $100,000 worth of electronics and everything. And we were planning to go out, catch squid and to chum, to do shows for great whites, about 1,000-pound great whites, the kind of stuff you see on National Geographic, and not to hurt them, to catch and release them for the show, because it was extreme fishing. And we got out, and we were planning on being there about 2 or 3 days, so sleeping out there in the middle of the Pacific, or out in the Pacific Ocean. We got out there. It was a beautiful night. Stars in the sky. We could see the phosphorescent squid in the water, and we started catching some. It was calm, and then all of a sudden, the 65-foot vessel did a 360, and we were in something called like the perfect storm. If you saw the movie, there were probably waves that were up to 40, 50 feet high, because the whole front of the 5-foot vessel would go underwater, and then it would. I had to tie myself with like 1-inch yellow rope underneath my armpit and around my neck, so that it wouldn't be thrown off the ship, because we were out in the middle of nowhere. The crew had mutinied in the life raft. All we had was the captain left. We had a crew of like 5 people on this large vessel. And I tied myself to the outside of the boat, because inside I thought I was going to get knocked out or killed, because the boat was just going from side to side and up and down so much, and so much water coming over the front. And I must have been knocked out, because I woke up when it was daylight and the water was calm. We were offshore. The captain wanted to commit suicide because everything had gone wrong. We had to wait for a punga to pick us up, to get back to shore. And we sat on the beach for about 2-3 days. Our crew, we didn't even say a word. We just stared out at water. And then we flew back to Canada, didn't shoot any footage. It was the time when the Sandinistas were trying to overthrow the government. So to do anything, to get on a bus or to get transportation or to get a jerry can of fuel, you had to give like $5 US, with guys with machine guns and stuff. So very memorable trip. That's all I can say. And we didn't get a fish, and we didn't get any foot, but we were.
That's crazy. Like, I've always wondered, like, like some of the rough stuff that you guys get, and you're out there, you're shooting. Like, how do you not? That's what you're there for. That's your job, right? It is technically your job. So I don't think that was very enjoyable, but you should say you're alive to talk about it.
Call it a life experience. I'm going to put it down in my notepad. Yeah. Been there, done that. Don't want to do it again.
Oh my God. That is friggin' incredible, dude. Like, wow. You know what? That's all I could. But it just seems like people don't realize, like, like what you do is really a job. Like, it is it's something you're enjoying, but it is a job. And the thing is when you work for yourself, sometimes when you're sick, you can't phone the boss and say I'm not coming in tomorrow. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do, especially when you're limited times and where you are, right? So it definitely is to me, like, wow, what a story that is. So, like, that wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting, I had Elvis Presley. I said that earlier I said that earlier. Yeah, I had this guy on my boat, and that would have been a memorable thing, right? So, but that's pretty awesome.
Well,
So, what about bloopers?
a fun experience that I had for about I'm going to say 2 years was working with Eddie Shack. I mean, for us old timers, you
Yeah,
probably Shack,
I
because he
love
played,
Eddie Shack.
cleared the track. Here comes Shack, and we traveled in Quebec and we went to Northwest Territories, filmed in Ontario, and I haven't purposely fished with a lot of celebrities or sports stars because a lot of times those people are very good in their field, nothing against them, but they don't really fish that much. And some of them don't interact very much. But Eddie was amazing because he spoke what he thought. So if we'd be walking through the airport and somebody was doing something that
We're getting a little bit of slag.
doing, kind of thing. So we had a great time together. For a big man that he was, and how tough he was on the ice, breaking hockey sticks over players' heads back then when you didn't even wear helmets and stuff. Goalies didn't wear masks. He was afraid of touching fish. So we'd get like a 40-inch pike, and he'd be like a girl, you touch it. So we had some great fun together. So he was one of the nicest guys and the most spontaneous guys that I ever worked with on camera.
We actually did a fundraiser with Eddie Shack, and I golfed on his golf course. You golf? Have you ever golfed his golf course?
Oh yeah, I've golfed with him. He was good, and I golfed with his also with Dennis Hull, which
That's
was a
all.
black
Yeah,
a comedian, right?
yeah,
Dennis, I
yeah.
don't know if you've ever hung around with him.
Oh yeah,
And
I know Dennis.
I mean, the whole family were from the Bay of Quinte, right? So they're from the Belleville area. So they love to fish, even Bobby Hall. But Dennis was a blast to golf with, and we actually won a tournament at one of the golf courses in Toronto. And it was funny because I got to tell you, his sense of humor. We were golfing, and one person in our foursome would never pick up the flag. You know how when you finish putting, you pick up the flag and put it back? And after
Yeah.
about the fifth hole that we golfed, Dennis said to him, and he held the flag in his hand. He says, "You know how much this weighs?" And the guy says, "No." And he said, "I didn't think so." And he put it back in the hole. But you talk about dry humor, right?
The fundraiser we did, they were both there. Dennis Hall and Eddie Shack were there, and it was a fundraiser for the Peterborough Hospital. It was for a young
Okay.
girl that passed away, and they were trying to build a room in her name, and it was Henderson's stepdaughter, great people, and
Yeah.
so um, those guys were incredible. Like we had so much fun with those guys while we were that night at the meeting. So like, you know what? We got some good people in this industry. There's no argument about that, and just people in general, right? But you've been around. You've been around the world. Like I don't. Is there a destination that is a target that you haven't been to? Like I've seen some of your shows and some of the areas that you've gone to, and like, is there something left for you that you're still?
I don't, I hate to say it, but I don't think so. I mean, some of them, our most exotic shoots, have been in India. I've been to India about 3 times filming, from the Bay of Bengal and Orissa province, which is south of Calcutta, one of the poorest places in India, to Himachal Pradesh, which is in the northern part of India, Shimla, which is the honeymoon capital for the Indians. Filmed in Israel, South America, Africa, South Pacific, near the equator, Christmas Island, Finland, with the original Rapala people, and the grandkids of Lori Rapala on the Kalkanen Rapids, same place where Lori Rapala a long time ago actually carved the first Rapala lure out of cork and used chocolate wrapping paper, foil, to make the first Rapala and stuff. So
Wow.
throughout the Caribbean, Atlantic, and throughout North America. And to be honest with you, I'm at the stage in my life where I'm traveling less. So I do come to Florida, but I drive down with my wife and the 3 dogs. And, we've got 7 grandchildren. So, and the grandchildren are in their mid-teens now, like 15, 16. And for the first time last summer, I had my grandson Benjamin with me for 1 week because I asked our daughter, is it okay if he comes down for a week? And we did like the grandpa, grandson thing. We would go fishing whenever he would want. We'd catch panfish, we'd catch walleye, we'd catch whatever, only for 2-3 hours. We get our fish, then we come back in, make a nice dinner, and then we'd watch movies till like 1 or 2 in the morning. So we watched all of the Hobbit series, we watched all of the Mission Impossible, eating popcorn and stuff. And you know what? I really enjoyed that. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that and sharing my passion of fishing with our grandkids. So I'm at the age where I can do that, and where we've moved to now, we're right on the water, so we can take all of our grandkids out, and sometimes we'll have 4 or 5 of them in the boat, and it keeps me busy. I don't have to catch fish. I just bait up and take fish off, or take fish off of lures and stuff. So I think for the main traveling, I said that I'm looking forward to going to the Bahamas. That would be more of a consulting trip with the people that I'm going with, fish and where to, how to catch fish and so forth. And I'll document it all, when I go down there. But I'm at the stage in my life where I'm very satisfied with the locations that I fish, both saltwater and freshwater, the cultures that I've experienced, the people that I've met. I've made friendships all over the world that I still keep in contact with. In some cases, I've helped to establish sport fishing in certain countries and islands, which is wonderful. So to me, it's more about, leaving information for people and constantly giving them information, like on our YouTube channel. When we founded Canadian Sport Fishing, it was mostly to do with education, not just showing people how to have a good time or trying to get big fish. And in many shows, I don't get a lot of big fish. It's just whatever we're catching, but I try to give a lot of tips. So to me, those tips that I've done in the shows, if they're going to continue, on YouTube, and they're continually syndicated and stuff, those are valuable because fishermen can enjoy them for years to come, even other generations. And, some of the tips won't change, how to find fish, where to find fish, how to catch them, times a year, best things and stuff. So now as much satisfaction taking people out. I was fishing a few days ago with a father and 2 sons, and I think I posted the video just recently on YouTube because I recorded them. The 12-year-old boy, Malik, landed like a 15 to 17 pound red snapper. And his father had to be literally have his arms around him and hold the rod, or the rod would have gone out of his hands. And it's a short video. I think it's only like 3-4 minutes. It's red snapper. So, I mean, I can be out, not even fish for like 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours. Just watch the excitement, when people hook big fish or different fish and stuff. So that's what satisfies me now.
I'm sorry about that, Italo. I just my phone kind of touched here something. So, I'm looking forward to those grandfather days too, dude. So hopefully they're not too far away. But I've and a lot of people I've talked to, even like Bob lately, he's been spending a lot of time with his grandson, and I look at Ange's grandson. He's like been on the show quite a bit, over the past few years, and
Yep.
I don't, you know what? I think that's just you get to that point where it's different, and you like to see them. Would you like to see the show maybe be handed over to one of the kids down the road? Do you think that's going to happen? What do you think? What do you see?
I don't. Show? I mean, the grandkids love to fish. My kids are older, and they've got their own lives and responsibilities. No, I think I'll do what I'm doing for as long as I can, and then I'll probably do different versions. I'll probably always do something in sport fishing.
Yeah,
and now the thing is really it's getting internet based. It's funny because here in Florida we don't have TV stations. Everything is, these Amazon Fire Sticks, or they're all apps, that we watch, and all the different like Netflix, Prime, and all this stuff, and YouTube. So I think in the near future, I'm going to be spending more energy to do stuff that's so readily available, especially for young people that spend a lot of time on the internet. Even though the television is important for the time being, I think eventually everything's going to switch over. It has to. So even the TV networks, there's going to be just apps, so whether it's CTV, it's an application that you look at it on a monitor. I think the days of, the cable companies being able to work the way they are is going to change. To what degree, I don't know. But definitely everything is going, like you and I right now talking, or you trying to help anglers, by doing interviews like this or showing product features and commercials on products where, you can't be in person at a show and have exhibits. Hopefully those days will return. But look at the multimedia that we're doing even now. It's just amazing. I'm down here, you're up north, and communicating, and it's amazing.
No, I 100% agree with you, and that's why with our show we've always tried to be educational, as what you guys do, and I think that like even right now we're trying to show like who Italo is, like what he brings to the table when he comes to the spring fishing show, and what is makes him tick, like that kind of stuff, which to me is important because that's what we're going to try to do all this weekend, because we just want to let people understand that we are picking people that are right for the job, people that are going to benefit people, and people that, like, Italo, you've always been trying to help people. Like, as long as I've ever remembered, like, you've always literally tried to, like, how many people say, your app, call me right now and I'll tell you what to be doing when you're fishing, right? You know what I mean? Like, so you've been, and we've watched you do it. We've watched people text you on purpose, and we to see if you answer, you know what I mean? So ask Italo, so it's pretty genuine, buddy. It's pretty genuine.
I appreciate it.
So but I still, it's when we are get together and we talk a little bit about the eating, a little bit about the cooking, and we talk a little bit about everything. It just makes it a little bit more fun, right? So you know that till today you hold the record for the mega tank.
I believe it.
Do you remember that fish?
I sure do. You know what?
You remember the fish you caught?
You know what I used for bait?
What'd you use?
Piece of smelt.
It was a 35-pound channel cat that you
no
caught.
net.
No net. And it was legal because you landed it and you lifted it, you released it. So that was a legal catch.
You remember that I actually stepped on the edge?
Yeah, you were giving me a heart attack. I remember. You remember me on the side thinking, "Oh my God, I hope he doesn't fall."
Yeah, walk up there, okay? It's kind of dangerous, especially if you're fighting a big fish.
35-pound channel cat, dude, and you caught it on the tank, and you fought it, and I'll never forget that. And you made it official because you actually unhooked it and released it. So it was incredible.
No fish were hurt in that incident. Yeah.
It was filmed. I bet there was a lot of footage from people videoing that. I just haven't got a chance to find it or look for it, but I'm sure it's out there.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it was an incredible moment, but like it's pretty cool. So there you go. You got a record with the CSFL, with the spring fishing and boat show. How's that sound? Italo, I appreciate you giving us the time to have an opportunity to get to know you better, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping you're going to be joining us at the Ultimate Ice Fishing Show, which is before the Spring Fishing Show. The Spring Fishing Boat Show will be back 1 year from now, so you better enjoy your time in Florida now because you're not going to be back there this time next year. And
because I missed the shows, I think Amanda Lynn Mayhew posted, it was either at the Spring Fishing Show or the Toronto Sportsman Show, the crowds of people and just stuff that I did, with your wife's permission, where I was chasing, Mike Borovic was chasing me, at the Spring Fishing Show, throughout all the stuff, some funny videos, ballers. I miss those days, even the dog, I would take Mulligan, in River, being there with the people around and stuff. Yeah. So hopefully it'll be back. This stuff is going to blow over, this COVID stuff.
It'll be back. You know what? Things may be a little different, but we'll get back to where we need to be. And, in the meantime, guys, and I know it's unfortunate we're not at the Spring Fishing Show this year, but like, I think even I don't know if the dealers are ready to jump back. I don't think they have the product. I think they're also trying to get themselves rebooted up and get themselves going. So I think that it's all going to come back shortly.
I hope so.
I hope so too. My friend, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and we'll hope to see you when you come back.
Stay safe, eat well, and God bless you.
Thanks, buddy. Same to you. All the best. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Italo Labignan right there in front of you. And, I've known Italo for such a long time, from the back in the days of fishing, and actually going back to the old Gagnon days when the shop was on Simcoe Street. I remember that. And Roger Parties kind of put a smile on my face because he was a really good man. And a very unfortunate incident there, but a phenomenal person. And his family's still very much in the business. And they've now moved locations just around the corner, but they got a great location. They got pretty much everything you need for fishing. So if you're east of Toronto and you're looking for a great tackle shop or a place that's going to tell you, what uses what works. Listen to their advice because they know what they're talking about. So, but today we have to thank Italo. Be prepared. We got many more coming. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in just a short time.
Days off are best with sandy feet and smiles as bright as the sun. Those are the good days, when life slows down, and your only job is making memories that nourish your soul. Mercury engines are made for exploring. So are you. Go boldly.